Hello. Okay, so today let us talk about um, a topic. I just want to talk about the environments that we're in and what we tell ourselves based on the environments that we're in. And what that means is, I think when people are looking for a new job, when people are looking to pivot, there's so much that comes up. And I think the environment that you're in and what you allow, what the internet tells you and what you tell yourself really impacts what you end up kind of believing about yourself and what is to be true in the economy right now, which may not always be true or may be exaggerated. Like, yes, there is a tough job market right now, but it does not mean you will be unable to meet the goals that you want. So, yes, you might be feeling stuck, but that is not the end, right? I think there's a space to figure out what's next. And I say this because like this year I've learned so much from like my own pivot into this is my fifth pivot, right? Into SaaS, which is software as a service, as a change management strategist and a trainer. And I moved into this job with a gap in my resume. I moved into just this job with one of the hardest economies to search for a job, and it still happened, right? So it's changed the way that I coach other people who are looking for jobs. It's changed the way that I live in terms of like understanding how to find the light, right? Find the clarity in the noise, if you will, right? And really leaning to alignment, right? And leaning into like, we are always chasing different things. And I don't think we're always chasing alignments, but I do think once you start asking yourself questions and you lean into alignment, it does help you, right? And the environment that you're in, the people you surround yourself with, and I'll link it, the social media that you invest in really does impact. I did a whole video on how I paid 60K worth of loans with social media, and I'm not an influencer, right? Um, all this matters. Your environment matters a lot, right? So what happens when you stop chasing every opportunity and start planting yourself in the right environment, right? Um, because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're uh, planted in the wrong soil, if you will, you think you're living in failure. You think you're an imposter when in fact you're maybe undernourished or unnourished. Is it under? Maybe undernourished. Malnourished. That's the word. You're malnourished, right? Because you're not in the right environment. So like let's talk about that, right? A lot of professionals I work with feel stuck, not because they're not qualified, but because their environments are not supporting them. It's draining their genius, right? And or it's help in enabling them to stay in a space that you can do the work really, really well, but it brings you no joy, it brings you no happiness, and you're just like, ugh, another day. I can do this with my eyes closed. If you can do something with your eyes closed, you don't need to be there anymore. You need to move on. You need to do something else, right? Because the point of life is to grow, is to be creative, is to figure things out, is to come alive. So if you're not coming alive, then it's a signal to you that I need to go to next to someplace next. And I think this is where people feel like they're stuck because they're like, well, where do I go? And people are stuck with where do I go because you haven't been nourished enough to figure out where. Because the thing is, you cannot grow in a place that does not encourage you, right? You can't grow in a place that doesn't value your curiosity, your autonomy. You can't flourish under managers who confuse control with leadership, right? Sometimes the work isn't the problem, it's the environment, it's the people who you're working with, what you're working on, the mission, whether it's aligned with who you are, your values or not, right? Or even what I don't believe, I think work can just be work. But if work is just work for you, I do think then what you're doing outside of work needs to be really prominent, right? Because, like, okay, I'm coming to work every day to do this, to get paid this salary, or to learn this thing, so I can do this. And then whatever this thing that you're doing is should fulfill you so much that you're like, whether in this season of your life the job is a sacrifice or not, I think that's tricky in how to talk about that. But if you're seeing this season of your life, this job as a sacrifice, let that be the case. but then let it serve a greater good of I am thrilled to clock out and do X, Y, Z, and this is what this job is affording me. I hope that's clear. Right. Because most of us were raised, or at least I was raised, to pick stability over creativity, to pick the safe path, not the aligned one. And for me, what that looked like is when I was growing up, I wanted to be a lawyer. Right. And by the time I got to college and I started taking some classes, I was like, maybe law is not for me. Not because I didn't like it. I just felt like by the time you're and I wanted to do a lot of support. I wanted to work for the DA office. I wanted to just really help people who were super down in their luck, who didn't have a lot of support, right? So the work I was going to do wasn't like the glamorous corporate law. And I was like, well, why don't we not even wait until someone is like needing a free law support, right? Why don't we actually help people through social services? And that's kind of like what led me to getting my master's in social work. So I went from law, which is high paying, pretty stable, to social work, which is also very stable but low paying, right? So my parents were kind of like, don't love that for you, but at least it's stable. And then the way I kind of corrected that was that I ended up working for the Department of Education, right? And by doing that, that also brought like stability, decent pay. So they were like, okay, fine, you're not going to be like, destitute or whatever for the rest of your life. So that was nice, right? Um, and then I did that for a bit, so that I took that quote unquote safe path. Um, but it wasn't really aligned because I was doing work that I enjoyed. I stayed there for a while, but I was just kind of like, I feel like it's a little bit, I'm a little bit trapped in here because when you work in government, there are things that you just do the same things, right? It's work before, we're going to keep doing it. And I just wanted to explore more. I wanted to try new things. So I ended up pivoting, and that's when I pivoted to tech, right? And I think even though my environment wasn't like super supportive, and this goes back to what I mentioned earlier, I created a social media feed that told me that, hey, pivoting this other way of life was possible for me. So that's what encouraged me, right? So by doing that, I wasn't super overthinking my pivot. I wasn't overthinking or apologizing for my ambition, and I also wasn't necessarily no, I wasn't also chasing like titles or prestige anymore in the same way because I was like, okay, well, in terms of the life that I thought I was going to be in before, I'd already kind of done the things. I'd worked for the New York City Department of Education. I'd worked for really big universities. And I was like, okay, the titles, the name brands are nice, but if I'm not happy there, it doesn't matter. So maybe I should find work that makes me happy, right? So, um, I think this is where I started going back to my earliest dreams of why. Why do I want to do this? What problems do I want to solve? What makes me curious? That data, that original blueprint we have helps us keep unfolding in our lives in ways that allows us to move from job to job, position to position, and be happier in it. And as you're moving, you're making more money, you're giving yourself more experience, which is great, but you're no longer always feeling stuck because you're moving from a place of curiosity, of faith, right? Of where am I most needed and valued, and where do I come alive, right? People always are like, oh, you pivot so much, you pivot a lot, right? Because I've gone from nonprofit to government to tech, and all these other things, but I don't necessarily see it as like these grandiose moves. I see them as very aligned, right? Because I kept evolving over the course of my job. And I do have a through line through it all. Like through it all, I've always been helping people. That's always been where I've laid my head down. Like I am doing my job so I can help people live better lives to achieve their goals quicker. Right. So that has looked very different from when I was a school social work to when I was a nonprofit to when I was in ed tech, now that I'm in SaaS, but the through line has been the same, right? Every role has been another expression of who I already was. And that expression came out through what I learned in my previous role and just life experiences at large. But the through line was always the same, right? So when you stop labeling your evolution as instability, you start seeing your path as proof of alignment, which also then allows you to be more nimble. And it's like really, really big because the world is changing so quickly with AI and all these different things and with layoffs and this and this and that. So if you allow yourself to see that through line and be nimble in that way, then you can easily see opportunity and jump in. So if you get laid off from, I don't know, your program manager job, and for whatever reason you can't find another program manager job right away. I don't know why that was such a jumble in my head. If you can't find that right away, then what happens is that you're able to say, okay, these are my core skill sets. This is why I do what I do. So maybe I can move into user research. Maybe I can move into fundraising. Maybe I can move into whatever, right? And it's less daunting and you feel less stuck because you see the through line because you know you and your work the best, right? So if this makes sense to you, but you're like, okay, give me a little bit more, this is how you can um, audit your environment and see like where can I be more supported to move forward, right? Who are you surrounded by? And do they reflect your next level or your old version? And when I say a question like this, I mean like a lot of advice says look at your manager, look at your skip level manager. Do you aspire to be them? So if you look around and you're like, I do not aspire to be like any of my coworkers, I do not aspire for the job my boss has, miss me, then you know it's time to start looking elsewhere, right? So look at who you're surrounded by and see what you like and what you don't like. And it can be like more technical stuff, like, do I want to do this job? And the answer could be yes or no. It could also just be more quote unquote soft skill stuff. Maybe you don't want your boss's job, but you love the way that they're able to network in a room, right? Maybe lean into that. And while you're in that job, learn that networking, right? You already know, hey, I don't want your job, I don't want this, but I do want to learn this skill from you as I move to my next thing. So lean into that, right? Find the beauties, the silver lining in everything that you're doing by figuring out who you're surrounded by and identifying, does this reflect my next level or not? Right? What systems are supporting or sabotaging you at work, at home, in your mind, right? So, what are you doing that is either helping or not helping you? And again, I'm going to bring up the social media. Who are you following on social media? What are you listening to your podcast? What music are you listening to? Who are your friends? Even when you're at home, how much work do you have at home, right? Is a lot of the home management on you, right? And if you live by yourself, then maybe depending on where you are, it financially or whatever the case might be, maybe you can hire someone to clean your house once a month. Or if you can't do that, maybe you give a routine for yourself so that way you're not living in clutter or you're not missing meals. Like figure out your systems, figure out what's working, figure out what's not, and then lean into your community for help if that will give you the mental space to think and to plot your next step, right? So what systems are supporting you or sabotaging you? And the third question is, are you in the right um, soil for the next season? Are you right in the right mindset? And that goes back to my two things, right? Look at who you're surrounded by, understand what's supporting or sabotaging you. And once you're able to align that, then you start seeing like, oh, have I put myself in a space? Am I giving myself the right information to figure out my next season? Right. And then that's where you go from there. And if you want more help with this, if you want to be more intentional, I do offer coaching. So happy to do that with you. However, before you take that leap, I do implore you to at least like take some time to just like write these down and reflect on it, right? Before you move on. Because thriving is a mixture of mindset and environment. Who are you surrounded by? What are you surrounded by? Clutter, right? Because the clutter externally becomes clutter internally as well. So we want to do that, right? So if you've been judging yourself because you're not landing a job quickly or you're stuck or you're not getting the promotion, whatever the case might be, I really just want you to pause and take a second, right? And just think through all the things you've achieved, all the things you're great at, and how your community, how your environment can support you. And in the ways that it's not supporting you, how can you reframe that? Because you're not broken, right? You are probably planted in the wrong place And the great thing, the good news, is that you can replant. You can shuffle stuff around. You can, the job of ants and soil is to create airways to aerate. I think it's aerate the soil, right? Which makes it fresh, which makes it allows it to breathe, right? So does your soil need to breathe? Do you need to just throw out the soil and bring in new soil? Do you just need to add, some soil on top of it? There's so many options for you. It's not one right answer. You know your right answer, right? And that's where reinvention lives, right? Move to the environment, create the environment where your gifts can breathe, can flourish. All right. I enjoyed this. I hope you did as well. Please give me your questions, your comments, your reflections, your answers to these questions in the comments below. If you do want to work with me, I'll also put that link below as well. I'm doing this for 100 days, meaning I'm posting daily for 100 days. And I'm doing this because I really want to help you because I've gone through so many seasons in my life where if it wasn't for the help of others, the knowledge of others, the wisdom of others, I would not be where I am today. So I really want to give back in that way. But I can't do this by myself. I need your help. So please ask me your questions, your concerns, whatever the case might be. And then we can get unstuck together. We can plant the new environment, the new soil together. All right. See you tomorrow.